Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've had no one approach me for public comment. Kelly, did you? No? All right. Then we will move on to number 4, approval of September 5th, 2024 Extension Education Economic Development Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion by Rosenberg, a second by Pfeiffer, and all in favor? Aye. That's approved unanimously. We will move on to policy issues discussion and potential committee determination. If there is no objection, we would like to combine 5A, discussion regarding 2025 annual budget development and policy recommendations from the committee, including review of the mandatory discretionary program document and discussion of rates and fees, with 7C, overview of the highlights of the 2025 annual budget with respect to the departments and organizations over which the committee has jurisdiction. Is there any objection? All right, well, I'll turn it over to Administrator Leonard.
Thank you, Chair Marash. Good afternoon, everyone. So I apologize if you've seen my presentation to other committees. This will be somewhat similar. We're still working on the budget. We're making a lot of headway. I have still a fair amount to type working with our team, but I'm not going to focus on numbers today. Just going to try to, as the agenda item under the educational item talks about, give you kind of the overview, the major takeaways through the budget building process. I want to start with something that I think everyone on this committee has probably heard before, but if you've been through a budget process, the county budgeting process is largely status quo every year. We've been going to all of the committees, this committee included, with very much the same language under item 5A, having conversations about and allowing for discussion at the committee level about the 3 questions we focused on with HR Finance and Property Committee Chair Robinson when we kicked off the budget, which was what programs or services do we deliver, at what level, and at what cost. And I've gotten some direction from every committee, but that direction has largely been, again, status quo. There are many questions have been asked. We've really only identified a couple of programs that I would say are either new or expansions of scope. The 2 primary that come to mind have really been at the Health and Human Services Committee. There was a request to expand our beach testing protocols that we have to test county-owned swimming, the water, I should say, at county-owned swimming beaches. Came at a very large cost of $12,000 annually to expand that. So that was recommended I include in the budget, as well as a program expansion relative to work at the health department as essentially a sub-recipient of a grant that the city was going to accept relative to lead mitigation work, which already aligns with some of the work we do. So each of those were recommended to include, but largely I did not receive any direction to cut any programs or eliminate programs, scale them back. We had a lot of conversation at the various committees about opportunities to expand. This committee is probably the best example of that, and it's highlighted in my budget. A lot of conversation about issues relative to economic development and what is the county's role, housing, child care, general economic development of county-owned properties that perhaps we can divest. I didn't receive any directives from this committee relative to allocating funding. I highlight all the conversations you've had, but there's no money allocated in the budget because the county board didn't prioritize that at this point. I do, however, give you an opportunity in there about if you do want to do that. I kind of spell out a couple of ways to do it. But again, it's largely been the staff job is to affect the will of the county board around those 3 questions relative to budget, and then also some other action you've taken, your priorities and guidelines document that the resolution you approved, as well as your budget assumptions. So I want to kind of highlight what you're going to see from the departments that appear before you, and as well as the other entities that appear. In terms of program expansion, you did have a conversation with the library board. The library director came and explained to you, one of the changes they made was they added a security position at the library to address some of the challenges they've had. That really is probably from your committee's perspective, the largest thing you'll see in the budget. The library budget, however, is largely status quo. It's a slight increase over their request in previous years. My recollection is about it's $50,000 higher than previous requests. The other thing that this committee and all the other committees have done is those areas of within your area of jurisdiction, you had nonprofits appear before you. I built the budget consistent with the county board directive to fund those nonprofits at the same level they were funded in the 2024 budget. The other entities that frequently come before you, UW Extension, again, those are all state employees. We have a performance contract with the state. That contract is, again, largely status quo in terms of cost. UW Stevens Point Wausau campus comes before you based on your level of jurisdiction, but you don't fund operations. The place you'll see reference to the university in our budget is going to be on the capital side that Chris has done a great job on. So in terms of who appears before you, like all of the other standing committees of jurisdiction, it's going to be largely status quo. I did want to give just a couple observations, and I said this at both the Health and Human Services and meeting and infrastructure earlier this morning. The largely status quo function of the budget is getting more and more difficult. Levy limits in the state of Wisconsin are a challenge, and they do really hoist upon the county board some difficult decisions. Your revenues, the growth in revenues that you have from net new construction under the levy limits do not keep pace with general inflation. And in fact, the function of levy limits with the growth in equalized value effectively pushes that tax rate down by the growth in equalized value or the growth in property value. But your new revenue is simply net new construction. There's not an inflationary factor added to that. Your shared revenue increases haven't kept pace with inflation. The shared revenue amendments that were made last year through the state budget were very helpful. But in terms of additional new money from what you received last year, it's approximately $120,000. There's another inflationary section in the budget. I shouldn't say I added it. I updated it from the information that was in last year's budget. We all know in our personal lives and our professional lives that the costs for goods and services have gone up by more than what we would see in terms of net new construction. We know that. And it's certainly in an organization of 750 full-time equivalents, our growth we're going to see between wages and our operational expenses are going to exceed the net new construction value of 1.78% that we had. Equates to, for ballpark, it's not quite this high, but equates to what, $1 million. When you add the $1 million there, you add $120,000 in additional shared revenue. Then you talk about how are we going to fund raises? Essentially, every department head that we have is always looking to cut their operational budgets to fund our compensation increases and healthcare costs. So it's a challenging environment. So one other highlight I'll make with respect to the budget, I'm very proud of our team. In addition to the budget priorities and guidelines, the budget assumptions, and answering those three questions that I talked about, one other highlight in terms of budget directive from the county board recently has been related to the capital side. One, with respect to routine and end-of-life maintenance, the directive the last several years has been we need to fix what is broken or is going to break. We need to be strategic about that. Deferring maintenance is not a long-term fiscally responsible decision. So we put a lot of effort into trying to do that. This budget comes very close. Chris is still putting the finishing touches on that capital plan. We're not quite there to fund all of the end-of-life and routine maintenance, but we're in a much better position than historically, and I'm very proud of that. The other thing the county board gave directive to us last year, the board amended its rolling stock policy. So Jim Griesbach has been a strong proponent of that, essentially making the argument that we hadn't before last year increased the amount allocated to rolling stock, that is equipment, large equipment replacement, vehicle replacement, in well over a decade. You did that last year. That is, again, a really great policy decision. We should do that. Funding it is a different challenge, and your ability to do that in the current fiscal environment in light of the limited revenues that we have in the state of Wisconsin for counties, and in light of the strict levy limits is a challenge. But I'm very proud we were able to accomplish that funding of rolling stock. So all of that said, I also said I wasn't going to talk about numbers, but I'll leave you with just one highlight. And again, I'm proud of the work that our departments have done, but it also gives you a sense of what levy limits are going to result in. I think the board will be pleased to know, while we're still finalizing our numbers, the proposed budget you're going to receive from administration is going to have a very significant reduction in the overall tax rate. I am very confident it's going to be above 15 cents. So it's not all that many years ago. You were, I believe when I took the position of administrator, our first budget, we dropped it to about $4.53 or $4.55. You have come down, you're going to be in that, you're already at $3.99. You're going to be significantly below that. In the northern portion of the state of Wisconsin, Marathon County has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, tax rate. So that is a good thing. But I think it also demonstrates the challenge that levy limits pose, and you have very few levers to pull to balance the budget and purchase all the things that are necessary to deliver the goods and services that the people of the county rely upon and have come to enjoy. So that's the highlights through this project. This year's budget, I will say one other thing that we very much took to heart the guidance from the county board to evaluate our fees. We have proposed, you'll see in the appendix to the budget, a number of fee increases where they are appropriate. Solid Waste has done an excellent job in presenting not only to the Solid Waste Board, but also the Environmental Resources Committee about taking a good hard look at our finances to make sure we're, particularly in the enterprise fund arena, doing a good job to cover our costs. The Health Department has done very well. Conservation Planning and Zoning brought forward some innovative proposals. Identifying those areas where fees for specific services like permits or what have you, or camping fees, Parks, Rec, and Forestry has done well. We've really taken that to heart. So the budget process, while still ongoing, I think those are kind of the key features right now. I don't want to gloss over the fact that under 5A, if you did have questions or wanted to make recommendations, I don't know that I can affect many of them right now since most of the budget is largely completed, but we'd be happy to answer any question from the staff perspective.
Okay, any questions or comments? No. Excuse me, frog in my throat. All right, so then we will move on to 5B, consideration of communication addressed to state officials advocating for a comprehensive approach to addressing the child care crisis. So we had discussed previously in this committee about sending a letter to the legislature and the governor, but we thought, Administrator Leonard thought, and I agreed, that a resolution would be more appropriate and have a little bit more oomph behind it. So this is what we have come up with, and would you like to discuss that further?
Happy to answer any questions. If, again, this was a draft that we put together based on the conversation that the committees had and the action you've recently taken. We tried to put enough detail in that it was compelling, but at the same time, not too much that it became too long and cumbersome to get through. So we're aiming to hit the Goldilocks zone, but if there are things you want amended, certainly feel free to do it as the as Chairman Rash referenced, the idea would be that this would then go to the county board, provided it's adopted at the county board. I would then send a letter to the representatives of Marathon County, all the legislators that represent portions of Marathon County, as well as the governor, with that resolution as an attachment. I typically do that through email, but we have also sent a follow-up hard copy.
Any discussion or questions? I have one amendment I would like to make on the fifth whereas many families continue to struggle with the high cost of childcare, which can exceed 20% of a family's income, I would like it to say 25% based on the information that we got from the gap analysis. It showed that we were at 27% for Marathon County and higher for the rest of Wisconsin. So I just think we need to make that adjustment. Is there any opposition to that? No? Thumbs up from Supervisor Rosenberg and nods from the rest. Excellent.
Yeah, you could make a motion to adopt with that modification, and I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend the county board approve the resolution as amended by the chair.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. On to 6A. Well, we don't have any of those things. Operational functions required to statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. We'll go on to 7A, UW Extension 4-H Program Overview, National 4-H Week, October 7th through the 12th. Boy.
You're all set. Take it away, Holly.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Not used to standing behind podiums. I'm used to kind of walking and moving. So I'm Holly Lurson. I'm a 4-H educator with Marathon County 4-H. I'm here to just kind of share a little bit of an overview of our youth development program here in Marathon County, some of the strides that we've hit and things that we've celebrated this year, and also as we look ahead to the future a little bit. So we're going to go through a few slides here that talk about our program, have a little discussion, and definitely at any point, if you have questions or anything, please feel free to just ask away and things. So, right. So just to kind of give you an overview of our program, we are a youth development program for youth currently in 5K through 1 year past high school. And we also enroll or recruit a number of adults to be volunteers who provide mentorship in our 4-H program. So this last year, we ended the year in August with 804 members in Marathon County, and that's up 2.3% from the previous year. And since I've been in Marathon County now almost 3 years, the year before we also took a jump. So we're looking at seeing these strides and youth wanting to be part of our program, which we're super excited about. And then we are also 258 certified adults. So when the adults enroll, there's a system where background checks, and then there's trainings and things that they do are required through the state of Wisconsin. Plus, then we provide additional training for them. And loosely, we, in a variety of community programs that we connect it with, we figure we at least 3,000 youth, but that's what we could actually kind of tabulate. Where we reached beyond that in a variety of programs that we were involved in, it definitely can go up from there. Our staff right now currently is me. We have had a little bit more of a bolstered staff. We are in the process of hiring a replacement for our halftime educator, which that one position is funded through our Leaders Federation. And it's a limited time commitment that they have given to our program to have another educator in our county at a halftime. I'm a full-time educator because they recognize the need and the desire to provide positive education out into our communities. And through a variety of other grants that I have received and funding assistance, we have in the past had 2 full-time AmeriCorps program assistants, and then 2 summer AmeriCorps program assistants. We are looking to hire, starting in January, 2 more that will go from January through August with some of the funding I have received recently. So through a variety of ways, if there's funding and if there's people, we have a little bit more on our staff to help provide the experience in Marathon County. And just to highlight a few of the things that we do have offered to especially our own program youth, but then out into the community, we have a variety of camp programs, anything from our traditional overnight summer camp programs for the campers in 3rd through 7th grade, and then youth 8th grade through high school, our counselors for that program. We have a very bolstered 4-H foodie club that we run almost every month, and in the summer we have it once a week for about 4 or 5 weeks. And the summer program is really cool because we do it on Wednesday mornings. They come in, we go down and walk to the farmers market, which is almost next door to our office, connect with a vendor there, and a little bit of that farm to table experience, and come back, and then they make some meals. They get the recipes to take home, things that are simple yet engaging, so they hopefully can encourage families to, try something new, go to the farmer's market, and then also like some recipes that might be different, from snacks to full meals to beverages, and that. So we've had a folkloric dance group in Marathon County 4-H, a variety of families that cultural experience that have been learning and experiencing the Mexican dances, and then they've been going out into communities and sharing their talents with the communities and things. The Discover Wisconsin trip is one that from past evaluations and things, and as we dug into what our 4-H and our youth in our community are looking for, the Discover Wisconsin trip came about as youth wanting, especially middle school youth, how can we keep them engaged in the program going into high school, sometimes at middle school? What are we looking for that interests them, that sparks them? And so our Discover Wisconsin trip was one that we formed from that. Looking at we do a 3-day, 2-night trip in Wisconsin. And each year we've gone somewhere different. This last summer we went up to Northwest Wisconsin, and we stayed on UW Superior's campus for 2 nights. So they got a little campus experience, and then we explored out from there. We went into Duluth and did the aquarium, and we did some hiking, we did some canoeing. We visited just a variety of different places. We were supposed to stop in Hayward for Lumberjack, but it was storming, so we just kept going. We just try to look at those experiences and try it low cost, right? Again, trying to find donations that help cover a lot of those costs, so it's not a burden to our families. And that is one that has been open up to the community, and so we've had a few community youth engage in that. And it's been a 5-county collaboration for this experience, and we're looking at next year splitting that up because we did have some youth we had to put on a wait list because we had more youth interested than what we had experience for. So splitting that up amongst our counties and doing the program so that way we can engage more youth in that opportunity. We're also looking into other high school level trip for next summer, a 4-day, 3-night experience going out. But this time, instead of staying in Wisconsin, like going just outside, like how can we as Wisconsinites go and experience places, historic places, culture? We want to explore non-traditional cities. Even in Wisconsin, we're not going to Green Bay, we're not going to Milwaukee, we're not going to Madison. We may stop if we're going through one place, but what are some of those other places that they can experience a culture, they can experience education, places that their families don't necessarily take them, but are very rich and vibrant. So we're looking at, with a team of actually high schoolers putting together this trip for next year and letting them do the planning, helping them go through that experience, putting the budgets together. Where is optimal for drive distance, right? All those pieces, and what then are they interested in traveling? So we're looking at next year jumping into the high school level because we've had these youth go through the middle school 3 years now, and they're like, I'm done. Now what do we get to do? Okay. Now let's put you guys in the planning seat and help us plan experience. So those are some things. And one of my favorite things in 4-H is that I get to help youth explore I haven't gone worldwide, across the nation, right, with different programs. I think that's a great opportunity when we can find the funding, because a lot of our youth don't get out of the area. We're taking a group of youth to Washington, D.C. the end of October through the Herb Cole Foundation. Applied for that grant. That becomes a very low cost. And we had 32 spots available, and we closed registration 3 days early when we reached 100 youth wanting to participate. And it was sad, we only could take 36. But we'll apply again and put it out there, and hopefully we can reach those numbers. So they want to travel, they want to experience, right? So we're looking at different ways for that, besides giving the younger ones experiences in county. So it's a building block type of thing. Another area that we are involved in is Juntos program. It is an area where we have provided education for Hispanic families in the high school level, and working with them and their families together to provide pathways. How do you finish high school? Why is it important? And then beyond that, what can you do? There's college, there's workforce, there's trades, right? There's all these pieces. What can you do beyond that to become a successful citizen? So that's been a relatively new in the last 2 years. We've been working with Abbotsford School District, and we've been working with Marathon was another one that they were going to start with this year. So we're kind of like spreading out a little bit and trying to get into those programs and provide that. And then when they bring the younger siblings, we provide some education opportunities while the families and the older siblings are in that learning space. And then below that line, that dropped a little bit, for our adults, we provide volunteer development opportunities so they can become successful, so they can provide that spark to the youth that are involved in our programs. We have trainings that we offer a couple times a year, some virtually, some in person. And then we do have a Strong Leaders Federation, which is our typically adults, but there are a few youth on there. And through them, they have provided a variety of funding sources so we can provide programs, not just in 4-H, but also into the community. A couple highlights here. At this point, when we closed out the year, we were the second largest youth program in Wisconsin, so we're super excited about that. And we've had an 81.3% retention rate, which is higher than the state average 4-H rate. So we're looking at things like some of our program that we're doing has been impactful. It's been dynamic enough. They want to stick around. The adults want to continue around too. So we're looking at hopefully continuing to grow our program. And then we've been recognized nationally for several of our camp programs and also our program service areas. So as we look to what we're doing, we're providing that opportunity through curriculum that's been developed either by us or we've from other extension places. Like through extension, it's nationwide, and we can tap into Utah or Ohio or anywhere, and if they have some good programs that we can use too. Not sure how many of you have heard about our Youth Thrive survey. So this has been adopted as a flower symbol here, starting at the bottom with how do we build our 4-H program with our 4-Hers, that over time they grow from what's the soil, like do they feel like they belong? Do they feel like they're part of a group? Do they have the opportunity to meet new people? Do they have an opportunity to invest in something that interests them? And as they grow up this flower over time, all the different outcomes. So hopefully, as they move through our program over years, we have some really long-term outcomes that there is academic and vocational success. They have civic engagement. And that's one of the pieces why this DC trip is so important to me, is giving them the opportunity to get to Washington, DC, see where our government is, learn about the history of it, meet with senators, people that they might not be able to ever touch, but through this Herb Cole Foundation and his dream, we're able to do that. And, because their voice matters too in our communities, and how they can bring that back and use that. So there's a variety of areas here that we look at when we do this Thrive survey. We've done it for the state of Wisconsin, set this up over the last several years, and we looked at program quality, challenging growth, caring adults, youth-adult partnerships, youth belonging, and youth sparks. So on our next slide, we'll see what our results were from the last year and how we've done. They base it on a 7-point scale, which I always honestly find a little odd. Why 7 points? But that's what the group that created this dynamic piece did for us, right? So you always got to start by that. So the 5.7 doesn't look so bad when you know it's out of 7, right? So these are our scores, and actually we did really well, and many of them higher than the state 4-H average. So most of them hover right around that 6.0, right, when we round them. So we are really excited about that. Also, a lot of pieces in there that we can use to help develop more programming, more quality programming. How do we build up those youth-adult partnerships and those relationships, and digging in more to what sparks them. So like that high school trip, right? What's one way we could grow that? They spoke. They wanted to do some opportunities, so how do we get into that space? Really looking at those opportunities in Marathon County 4-H. Here's a few quotes that came out of that survey from our 4-Hers that I thought were impactful. I learned so much about having patience with other people this summer when I was a counselor at 4-H. Wow. I mean, that's a great thing for those high schoolers to learn, patience. I learned about different project areas and learned that success often correlates with the amount of work youth are putting in. How to step up and take leadership role in a club, how to voice my opinion, make ideas in a plan, put it into a plan of action, and then into reality. I mean, all those steps. So that's probably a youth that's been very involved in making decisions they're talking about their leadership role in their club, right? You are not competing against other people, you are competing against yourself. Always try to be a better version of yourself. Those are some of those things that we have that have been involved in our programmings. Like, it's not about everybody else. It's about you and how you fit in and how we can provide these programs for you. Looking ahead to this next year, if I'm able to put together a full staff, we can really bolster another full year, which I'm really hopeful with that. Collaborating. We did a lot of collaborating this last year within the community with Boys and Girls Club, the G2M program, through Wausau School Districts, both after school and some with summer. We provided a summer youth theater program this summer that was a community opportunity. And we brought in Missoula Children's Theater, and then we did the week-long program and the performances on UWSP's campus. It was a cool opportunity to partner with them and, again, bring youth to a campus situation, right? Library programs are another place. And along with some of the different community organizations, this weekend we're going to be on the 400 block with Wausau area events with their Harvest Fest for the children, right? So trying to fit in those spaces so we can reach families and we can share our program. We talked about before that new program that Wisconsin Discovers 4-H travel opportunity. We're looking to continue to grow, helping our clubs, supporting our club leaders, helping to develop this Discover Wisconsin trip and how that's going to look, and just what kind of sparks do we provide for the youth. And then sharing our impact. What are ways like coming here? We have social media, so I'm not sure if you're following us on Facebook, if you have that, but Marathon County 4-H, we have a social media, and we have a pretty high following group on there. We're well over 1,000 people that follow us on there, so that's great. They see our impact. They see the programs that we're doing, invites to all our programs. A lot of them are open to the community. We want to open up a lot of our programs so they can come in, they can feel our programs, and then maybe in turn, they'll want to join our organization too. Just quick celebrating our AmeriCorps team that we've had before. These are two that finished this summer. They did multiple terms, helping to reach all these different spaces, right? We kind of divide and conquer where we're going to go and where we're going to be. Aaron Sabo and then Kate Laux completed a couple terms and long terms. And then we had some summer members, Jade and Spencer. I really like partnering with AmeriCorps. It's another opportunity for these, I'm going to call them young adults that we had with us this summer to get an opportunity. They get other trainings, right? They become service members. They're hired through them, so they get to do the background checks. I don't have to do that, so that's a perk for me, right? But it's another opportunity for service for them working with AmeriCorps and with our program. Our enrollment is open right now. It's open back in September, so if you know of anyone or if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, it actually stays open all year round. People can join at any time. Our biggest push is try to get as many in by November 1st so they get all the communication, they hear the programs, they can become part of our 4-H family throughout the year. All right, this is a picture from Discover Wisconsin when we were canoeing this summer. We all met up and, it was kind of a fun picture to take. And then one of our highlights every year is next week, where we celebrate National 4-H Week. And we have some themes throughout every day next week. On Sunday, it's Thank a Volunteer Week. So hopefully through social media and different ways, our youth will be thanking a different volunteer that's been important to them. On Monday, share your 4-H spark. So what is it that makes 4-H, important to you? What do you like to do in 4-H? Again, hopefully we'll have some share outs that with each other. And then I'd like to invite you to any of the 3 Culvers on October 8th. We're doing a fundraiser. Culvers is a great partner. And so they said we could do it at all 3 Culvers. So from 4 to 7 on Tuesday night, if you're interested and want to come and support our program by purchasing, dinner, custard, of course, cheese curds, right? And then on Wednesday, it's wear your 4-H gear to school or work. And we have seen in the past where some schools, even some of our, especially our county schools, where they encourage as many of them to wear them, and they take these group pictures and they post them on their school websites and things. So hopefully see some of those in too coming up. And then what are we looking at? Oh, October 10th is 4-H Art Day. We have a variety of things we're going to post out. We're encouraging them to just be creative, drawing, painting, theater, music, whatever it is on that day. And we also have a day at Clay Corner Studio that evening. They're partnering with us and hosting us to do a painting event. And the 11th is shout out to your favorite 4-H club. And October 12th is Give Back Day. What kind of service project could you do for the community? Whether it's that day or you can do another day, right? How part of our program is about service learning and how we can give back to our communities. So that's kind of how we're kind of highlighting each day next week with different pieces. And there you can see a whole variety of different youth in different spaces from this last year. And a few adults are in some of those pictures too. So that's just a really highlight of our program. So I have a couple questions for you because I want to learn a little bit more about how we can get more invested into the community or we can work together. So a couple questions, and maybe we have some time and don't want to take up too much of your time, but what additional 4-H program could help improve youth development in Marathon County? And what gaps might exist in the current youth development in Marathon County? And how could we help fill those gaps with our resources? So if we have time to do a discussion piece like that.
Sure. Does anyone have anything to offer? Supervisor Lemmer.
First of all, thank you, Holly. It's such a great opportunity for our youth. I'm super excited to see that you are connecting with G2M and the Boys and Girls Club and some of the other things. And I don't necessarily have a way to improve it or a gap identified, but I think if you were to work with the schools, that's the best collaboration to meet those gaps, I would imagine. But thank you for this programming. It's just amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We are in one local Wausau school where we go once a month, actually in the school day for 3 different classrooms. So we all are starting to get into those places too. But a lot of that is capacity too. It's like, how can we keep building if I need to have the staff to do that too? But we have people knocking on our doors and they want to have us to come and to help provide that non-traditional education pieces. Capacity is one thing, and we're working on that too. So, yeah.
Anyone else? I just wanted to say that it's a very impressive program, and you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
I wish I was a kid again so I could do it, because there are like so many cool things. And I loved how you're able to take them traveling, because like you mentioned, there is a lot of kids that don't get to travel. And with how expensive everything is now, it's really fantastic that you're able to get some of those grants so you can take them out and have those experiences. I was curious, what camp do you use when they go on their camping experience?
So our summer camp, we go up to actually Northern Lakes Impact Center in Rhinelander. It's on Crescent Lake, just far enough that it's like out of the area, right? We bus them, we put them on a bus and bus them up there. And 3 years ago, we were like an 8-county program, grew too big, so we had a split. And our portion, we were a 3-county program, and now we just met, and we're going to split again because we're getting the youth. It's becoming a popular program, and families want to encourage their youth to go. It's just 3 days, 2 nights, so it's nothing too long, but enough that they can go away, be away from home, connect with nature, a little independence, right? All those pieces. So, yeah.
Well, and those are memories that stay with you for your whole life, and it can really be impactful and change your whole trajectory. I also really liked how you scored so well with the youth feeling a sense of belonging, because I think that it's so lacking now for kids, and especially with social media and how it's way too influential. So to have great influence like the programming that you have is just fantastic. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation too.
Thank you.
Is there anything else from the group? No? All right. Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. At any time, if you have any questions or whatever, just reach out. We'd be happy to have more conversation. Thank you.
And put October 8th from 4 to 7 on your calendar to get
Please.
some Culvers, okay? Okay, then we will move on for 7B, our update from UWSP regarding enrollment numbers.
Hi, I can certainly give you an update on where we are for the fall, and I'll start with the bad news and move on to the much more encouraging news. So our total enrollment is down 99 students from last fall. So last fall we were at 368. This fall we're at 269. Where that's not a terrible thing is that the entire decrease in enrollment comes from high school concurrent enrollments, and we knew those were going to be down. And that's really for a couple of reasons. So there's always fluctuation in how many concurrent enrollments we have. Sometimes it's that there's not enough enrollment at a particular school to get a class to run. Other times we have a lot of concurrent enrollment opportunities where it's the high school teacher teaching the classes, and sometimes they don't have room in their schedule to teach a college course. And sometimes it's that a school will decide to go with a different course that someone else is offering, either through NTC or one of the other UWs. So we do have other ways that we're looking at partnering with high schools to provide more support to them. And we do have other opportunities where we can pick up some more dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment courses. So where I feel good about our enrollment is that this is the first year in several years that we've been able to say we are holding completely steady with our actual degree-seeking students. We saw no decline in our actual degree-seeking students on campus. We have a really nice mix of full-time and part-time students. We retained a lot of students from spring to fall. We had a lot of students come back for a second year. And we had stronger recruitment than we've had in past years. So we did really well bringing new students in. And we are looking ahead. We have applications open for this spring and fall of 2025. For fall of 2025, we already have 276 applications. That is an astronomical increase over this time last year, and we had about 20. And there's some reasons for that. It's not, I think a lot of it is due to the Direct Admit Wisconsin program that you may have heard of, that all but UW Eau Claire, La Crosse, and Madison are participating in. So some of those applications certainly are from students who are outside of our normal area. But it gives us a really good pool to recruit from. We do have a lot of scholarship opportunities for students. And we had a lot of our students who were attending this year get really sizable scholarships that are helping them with their tuition. We anticipate the same thing happening for fall of 2025. We've got a lot of scholarship support from our campus foundation. And we also have really strong recruitment both in the high schools and with returning adults. So we are continuing that partial pivot towards focusing, I would say not necessarily focusing more of our efforts on returning adults, but we definitely want to provide that service to the community and provide degree completion opportunities for adults in the area who have not completed a bachelor's degree. So we maintain a lot of focus there and still bringing in high school students and giving them support for as long as they want to stay on the Wausau campus before they either transition onto the Stevens Point campus, transfer out somewhere else, or finish one of the degrees they can finish entirely in Wausau. So any questions for me?
Any questions? Supervisor Rosenberg?
Yeah, are you getting much with what's happening with the two-year campuses in Wisconsin? Are you getting people with much angst about I'll start here, but I can't? It's good, you know. The floor could fall out at any moment.
Surprisingly, no. So I'm not even sure how aware of the campus closures in other parts of the states students are. I would say from an advising perspective, when I've met with students and families, I've gotten that question a couple of times from parents. But I haven't talked to any students who are concerned about that. And I mean, that's certainly something where we're there to support the students for as long as we're there to support the students. So of course, I will help people get to wherever they need to be to finish their degrees.
Vice Chair Freifert?
Thank you. You talked a little bit about this in your presentation, but what type of strategies or initiatives are you looking at to increase that enrollment? You talked a little bit about that, but it just seems that there's been a dramatic decrease over the last 10 years, 15 years, and some of that obvious factors around it. But just wondering if you could touch on some of the strategies and initiatives to grow the enrollment.
Absolutely. So we've got two different recruiters who work with our campus. So we have one who focuses entirely on high school recruitment, and she gets to our Wausau schools as much as she can. She's also recruiting for us outside of the area. And, you know, certainly when we closed our residence hall, we stopped getting as many students from outside the area. And so what we'll do now, if we have students who express interest in coming to our campus from farther away, we'll refer them over to Timberwolf Suites. So we are actually increasing our reach. So I know our recruiter has been up in the UP recently, has been talking to students there because we're actually only about 2.5 hours away. It's closer for them to come to the Wausau campus than to go to the Stevens Point campus. And if they want to start on a smaller campus, that makes us a good option for them. We do also have an adult student recruiter who spends some time in high schools, but spends a lot more of his time working with transfer students or being out in the community. And so certainly we have multiple touch points in the community to get people information about our degree programs and to help them through the admissions process. We also have scholarships that students get directly on point of admission. So we have, and those scholarships are GPA dependent. We have scholarships that will support students from a 2.5 cumulative GPA and beyond. So those students get in their admissions letters. And so they know from the beginning what level of financial support they're getting. Then we also still have a lot of scholarship money that students can apply for, and there's a single application that they fill out that's open now and that we don't actually close until March. And there are scholarships there. Some of them still have GPA requirements, but there are others that are more need-based. And so a lot of the students, I would say the majority of students who are on our campus, if they're filling out a scholarship application, they're going to get some level of scholarship. We've also done a lot more marketing over the past year. And we are also partnering more and more with NTC to try to help students on a university path there get into degree completion programs.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Lemmer.
Going back to the residence hall question, do you have information on the success rate of them getting into the Timberwolf or facility, and then what would happen, or the impact, I guess, of closing it? Do you have data on that specifically, and if there would ever be a desire to plug your ears, Lance, open it up again?
That is a good question. So I don't know that we've really tracked how many students we've had apply from out of the area now versus when we had a residence hall open. I will say that the last year we had our residence hall open, it had fewer than 20 residents. And I think around 7 of them were NTC students anyway. So now we've kind of just flipped things where instead of having NTC students come and live on our campus, we have our students going over to Timberwolf Suites. I have not talked to anyone who hasn't been able to find housing at Timberwolf Suites. And I think it's been a positive experience for students who are living there because they make friends there. And we do have students who will take the bus between Timberwolf Suites and our campus. So it's been working out pretty well. Now, if we got a dramatic increase in students coming from out of the area, I can see a situation where we'd run out of affordable housing for them. But I'm not sure that that we'll get there. And I truly don't know that it would make a dramatic increase in our enrollment if we had our residence hall open.
Any other comments, questions? No? All right, thank you very much for your update. We got some good news in there, so it's a positive. And we're working on it. Got people at the table. So we will move on to 7D, discussion amongst supervisors regarding the takeaways from attending the Wisconsin Counties Association annual conference. And if there are any interesting opportunities you believe we should further investigate. Who wants to start? Because I think 3 of us went, right? So Supervisor Lemmer?
I went to a couple. I don't know how many of them we could implement. We already have made a significant investment in childcare, but Sheboygan County has some really neat things with multi-age, a facility going on, and it's connected to their senior housing, which we have senior housing and we have space available at our NCHC. So obviously not for this budget session, but it would be interesting to take a look and see if there's an opportunity at our Lakeview campus. And then I went to another one on human trafficking, and that was really hard. I'm sad because it was focused mainly on children, and it's pretty significant all over. There were some videos that were recommended. If anybody wants to see them, I can send the links onto them. But when I think about just things happening at the state level that have funding cut, and some of our housing for our female inmates, I'm very concerned about women, especially women and children, and it has obviously implications for housing. So let's get that task force moving.
Excellent, thank you for sharing that. Supervisor Hagan, I'm putting you on the spot. I'm good at that.
Okay, yeah, I attended a couple breakout sessions. I enjoyed the one on the different types of county government being new. It's interesting, the comparisons between the different types of county government. I didn't realize there was that many. Okay.
We just hold it closer. Just hold it closer.
Okay, it is working. Okay, sorry about that. I can repeat that, or did you hear it? I attended the breakout on the different types of county government. It was very interesting showing the different types of county government, realizing what we have versus what's out there. And it's very interesting because the way the control structure is set up. And Supervisor or Administrator Leonard, he told us about that, when I first started, that he's the guy in charge. We're the one that directs him. And that was reiterated in that. So that was very good. Some of the statistical stuff I heard was kind of scary, that the amount of 0 to 15 age group, I believe, is down like 40,000 in the last 3 years in the state. And that concerns me with programs that we try to set up going forward. Is if the level of children is going down, that's kind of scary. Where we're spending money on some of that stuff if they're not going to be those to back it up. And the aging population above 75 is growing immensely. So, yeah, with lack of workers and that type of thing. So that was what I took from a lot of it. So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I also went to the workforce and population shift breakout session and the Wisconsin Changing Economy, which both of those were very similar, both given by Dale Knapp from the Forward Analytics, right? Yeah. And so they just had like a few different slides, both not uplifting. Wish I would have known they were so similar because it's hard to be that depressed 2 times in a row. So also went to addressing the housing crisis, and that was very interesting because that was kind of the detailed plan of what Bayfield County has done. So I do have some takeaways from that, that they have like a housing readiness process, and they ensure that there's more local support for new development. They have parcel inventories showing which parcels would make the most sense to use. I think that something that we should look into is definitely updating our comprehensive plan in regards to housing and reviewing our ordinances to prohibit short-term rentals with deed restrictions, because I think it was 192,000 housing units in Wisconsin are short-term rentals, and that really increases the ability for people to find places to live. So I know we have some of that happening here, but not a lot, not compared to Bayfield County or Minocqua, things like that. But it's creeping. It's creeping up, especially by Rib Mountain, where I've heard a friend of mine, both neighbors of hers sold their house. One was to Colorado and one is from someone from Chicago, and they're just sitting empty now until they come to ski, which you should be able to do whatever you want with your housing, but it just makes it difficult for us attracting people here and finding a place to live if they want to work here. So those are just a couple of the ideas that I had. Any additional comments? No? All right. Then we will move on to 7E, update on bug tussle funding agreement. Is this going directly to Supervisor Robinson? All right, you are on.
Thank you. Based on action taken at the county board level to refer this back and bring in a recommendation at our October meeting, we've been meeting with bug tussle, and we as administration in primarily working through Mike Perner in the Corporation Counsel's office, working with them on reformatting the loan terms and approach. We had a conduit borrowing proposal of $12.5 million, of which $8 million was dedicated to the projects, $5 million to the 2021 conduit borrowing. That is associated with the 190 miles of fiber and the 16 towers that we have access to the towers in 24. Some of the fiber, 24 fibers in there, and then $3 million for the Leather Camp project in Knowlton, Gunther, and Crownwater. We had committed to a loan when they submitted the grant to the Public Service Commission. We've been looking at options, and we're trying to finalize an agreement with Bug Tussle relative to an $8 million loan. So we're not funding or borrowing for $4.5 million of capitalized interest, closing costs, and other activities, putting the county less at risk, but proposing to use reserves. The concept is that we would charge them a 5.4 interest rate, which is right about where the local government investment fund is at right now, which is where we're earning money. We anticipate that will go down, so we're locking that rate in for the duration of the loan. The loan would be distributed based upon their expenditures. It's not given to them up front, so they have to actually spend the money, provide documentation on how it was spent, and then they would draw down the loan. The first interest payments would come in 2025, and the first 5 years would be interest-only payments. And then from years 6 through 15, it'd be principal and interest. It's based upon a 30-year amortization schedule, which they indicate is needed because of the rate of return. But there would be a balloon payment, so the county's involvement would end with that balloon payment in 15 years. We're working on language relative to the collateralization of our interest, and we hope to have an agreement to present to the county board. Again, it reduces the county's total risk from the 12.5 we were guaranteeing the payment, but we're more at risk because we're using reserves. But this is modeled after work that was done in Kewaunee County and a few other counties, and we're just trying to bring it. We had hoped to have it finalized by today, but due to the broadband equity and access deployment deadlines on the part of Bug Tussle and some staff availability on the part of the county, we don't have it finalized as of today. We hope to have it finalized by next week. We just wanted to share that with you and update you.
Right, so
And Aaron, for many of you, you may not know Aaron. Aaron Andrews is our Brownfield coordinator and is doing an exceptional job, and she's coordinating the work on the broadband equity and access deployment program, and we had an important milestone earlier this week.
Hello. Just clarifying what milestone he wants me to talk about. We are, the BEAD process is underway. The letters of intent were submitted by all of the ISPs, the internet service providers that are interested in participating in BEAD. So we now know who those companies are. We are, and I have reached out to those that have been working in Marathon County to confirm if they are interested in, if they expressed interest in doing any work in Marathon County. The next step in the process is for the PSC to release project units. That the PSC is going to designate certain areas as project units that an internet service provider has to apply for if they're going to apply for certain addresses. In other words, the purpose of that is to get all of the addresses in areas covered rather than just picking and choosing random addresses. So what happens is the PSC creates these project units, but they cannot release them to the public until the NTIA at the federal level reviews all of these addresses that the PSC has approved as BEAD eligible. There are 8,443 addresses in Marathon County that are considered BEAD eligible, and there are 206,000 in the state that are considered BEAD eligible. So we are waiting for these project units, at which point it's going to be very quick to meet the timelines set by the PSC for applications. And why that's relevant to the county, and you'll be hearing from us, is that we can enhance an application by putting county support behind it. And we will have to decide, starting with the broadband task force and then infrastructure and then moving through the county, we'll have to determine which projects the county wants to support, put their endorsement behind. We can only endorse one for each project unit. That's going to be a rather quick turnaround because we're being held up by getting the project units waiting on the NTIA. The timeline may change, but as it is, we anticipate coming back to you in December with some information about where internet service providers are intending to apply and which ones we may want to support. I know that's a lot of information really fast. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, Supervisor Lemmer.
Do you happen to have information on what the other counties have decided with the bug tussle funding? 'Cause
Well, there
there's
were
right?
a number of them that, I don't know what the final numbers were relative to the last conduit borrowing, but we were not part of that. They are anticipating potentially going out in January with another issue. I know that some of them have taken the Kewaunee County approach. I know Fond du Lac County has done a combination of things in the past, but many of them are not in the situation that we are, where we had the initial conduit borrowing of 25 million, or our share was 25 million, and because of cost escalation, they needed more money to complete it. But I can get that information. I don't have it today.
If I can add one point, I know there was, this was a question at the county board, but just to make sure that everyone is aware, we did pose to our financial advisors the question, because as Supervisor Robinson referenced, there was some question as to whether or not utilizing general fund reserves would have an impact, if any, on our bond rating. The response that we received back was that it would not. So in either instance, the conduit bond that was originally considered pursuant to state statute, or this revised process, this essential loan from the general fund, neither one, based on their assessment, would have an impact on our bond rating.
Go ahead, Supervisor Robinson.
Again, let me try to put Aaron's comments in context. There's $1.055 billion available for the BEAD, the Broadband Equity and Access Deployment Program statewide. The problem is what you didn't get into is necessarily the timelines. We thought that the BEAD rollout would be much quicker. The way that it looks is they're going to go through an initial round for fiber to the premise, a second round for fixed wireless and coaxial, a third round for other technologies, and a fourth round potentially, if there's money left over, for anchor institutions and other services. They will not be submitting an application to the National Telephonic Information Administration until August of next year. After that, they will then get into the contracting. So the earliest that we'll see any of the BEAD dollars have an impact in the county would be 2026, which makes the bug tussle expansion for the fixed wireless and others more important to get services out quicker. So I think we're frustrated. We have a meeting next Tuesday with Alyssa Kenny from the Public Service Commission to get more clarity on how we can strengthen the applications in the county. But it's been a longer process than what we had hoped for. And if you don't have internet, we will look for other ways. But unfortunately, that Aaron also pointed out there were 35-ish internet service providers in the state out of 105-ish that submitted letters of intent. We thought that there would be a much higher level of participation. We were hoping that some of the companies like Amherst Telephone Company and Serenity and Solaris they did not. There were some that didn't come into the county. There were, fortunately, a number of providers. We still don't know what project unit that they will be working in. Once we have that, we can then focus in on how can we strengthen those applications, how can we get it done quicker. That's the work that Aaron will be doing. And we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants as we're trying to understand a federal program administered through the state.
Supervisor Hagan.
Yeah, I have a couple simple questions. I'm relatively new, so you throw some terms out that I don't understand. And quickly, what's the Leather Camp project? Is that separate from Marathon County, or is that an independent project?
The Leather Camp project is a Public Service Commission grant award to Bug Tussle for extending fiber to the premise in the Leather Camp area. It's specifically Gunther, parts of Gunther, Cronenwater, and Knowlton. So that's a project that we committed. We partnered with them. They came and asked us for $1.5 million grant. We said, no, that's too rich. We had to set a standard of we will do a forgivable loan of $235 per broadband service location. There were 636 approximately locations, 142,000. They then asked if we could provide a loan to them. We had agreed to that. We thought we could use American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We can't. So we were then looking at reserves or conduit bonding, and that's where we're at right now.
So what is happening now? Is there any construction in anywhere at this point?
They have to complete that project by December of this year. So they have worked on it. I think you have an arrangement with their. They had a number of contractors they worked with before this year. This year they partnered with Michaels, and I can tell you that the number of complaints we get is significantly reduced there, but I think that they are basically doing the work with the thought that they will be reimbursed at a later date. So they need the money to fulfill their contractual obligations going forward.
Third simple question. I saw the Bug Tussle booth at the County Association meeting, and the tagline down below on their little bags they gave everyone was AT&T. How is Bug Tussle related to AT&T?
So Bug Tussle has the fiber and the towers. The fiber connects and it increases your capacity and your backhaul capacity. So AT&T is a tenant in those towers, and it is important when you look at how we get information. Last time I checked, 52% of the information you get is through your cell phone. Cell phones rely on towers. And so that is an important component of any effort to try to deal with access to broadband or the internet. I think that Bug Tussle and AT&T have a strong partnership where AT&T will rent space on their towers for their telecommunication. We have access to 6 feet on those towers for our law enforcement and others, which is of value. And I think you've heard that when the Dancy Tower, DNR Tower went down, we were able to put our equipment on there, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there are advantages, but that's what the relationship is.
So I
think they will rent to other companies, but I think they're probably primarily renting to AT&T.
So they just have a business relationship. That's why. Okay, that's all.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
Yeah, I don't want to throw stones from from the peanut gallery here, but I hear this loan, 5 years of interest. Is it 15 years of interest and principal and then a balloon payment? And that makes me very uncomfortable in that as I'm watching this internet go in, I remember when I was real young, cars had AM radios. Then they had AM, FM radios. Then they had 8-track decks. Then they had tape decks. Then they had CD players. And, at 15 years out or 30 years out, however this is working, who knows what we're going to have, and it may not be valuable anymore. But it makes me uncomfortable.
We've had that question raised by several people, but it is 15 years to a balloon payment. The first 5 years are interest only. The 6th through 15th year are principal and interest based on that 30-year amortization. We've looked at it. The cable fiber between City Hall and here is over 30 years old. The fiber has a longer life. The towers have a longer life. What doesn't have the longer life is the equipment on the towers and some of the relays and other things. But we've talked to experts in the fundamental investment in the towers and the fiber will survive. And I was just listening to public radio today, and Alyssa Kenny from Public Service Commission was on answering that same question. But these are the roads upon which you are looking at. We have traffic signals and other things along those routes that will need to be replaced more often. But the fundamental road, the fiber and the towers will have a longer term value.
Any other questions? I have a question. Who are some of the ISPs that you've agreed to work with, or that have agreed to work with us, I should say?
So we have been very intentional about including any ISP that is interested in participating, inviting them to. So we invited them to a meeting earlier in this year, and I just sent an email out this week to the same group and said, just checking, did you submit an LOI in which you included Marathon County? So they have to be careful because there are requirements in the BEAD process to avoid collusion so that they don't identify who. So when the PSC released the LOI information, they redacted what counties these organizations applied for. I can say that there isn't anyone who's confirmed that is a surprise, that they're pretty much the main players we anticipated, except excluding a couple that chose not to, which would be Serenity Amherst. We were hoping they would apply, but they chose not to for their own reasons. So I don't know if I can share more than that in terms of, it's the people, it's the ISPs you've heard of, I would say. Is that helpful? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, so this was just being brought to our attention, and if there's any additional concerns or if you want to make adjustments or recommendations on anything with the agreement, you can do that at HR Finance and Property if you choose to attend there and offer your comments. And Administrator Leonard would like to add.
I almost got promoted to supervisor. Just a little bit of an additional clarification on the structure to your question, Supervisor Rosenberg, about giving you pause. The county did, you'll see on the, say red line, but it looks like it's a blue lined copy. It's in your packet. We did have conversations with Bug Tussle about the financing structure, and our initial presentation was a shorter period. Those terms when it's when the balloon payment would be, for example, our recommendation was a 10-year. At the end of the day, this is a negotiation. Without the financing, projects generally don't move forward or at least as promptly as they would otherwise. This was their response from a business plan perspective. They said, this is what we need to finance the project. That's why they generally like the 30-year term, which their initial conduit bond proposal was that a number of counties entered into. Longer period of time, just like you're buying a house, right? This is installing capital, which doesn't make money for a period of time, so that's the reason for the interest-only payments to start. And we can put together perhaps a draft repayment schedule, because I think it's helpful to see what those interest payments would look like. I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money when you consider 5.4% interest on $8 million, even if it's amortized over 30 years with those payments. So we'll work on having that for you to kind of digest as well.
How about we meet in the middle at 12.5 years?
Classics of negotiation. I think that is my sense, and I haven't had the conversation with their lawyer, but my sense is that is what they said they needed. So.
Well, I have some things that I appreciate, like the collateral and security portion that is good. The project timeline is fine. Access to facilities. Supervisor Robinson, you mentioned it was due to supply chain issues, and that wasn't it. There was three things. Bad subcontractor, which good, now we have Michael, so we know that they're gonna do a good job. They've been doing a good job. The not incorporating the fact that Marathon County is well-known for granite and rock everywhere. I don't know if there's anybody here other than if you live in Croninwetter that can dig down 2 inches and not hit a rock. And the distance calculated between where they were going to run this. So those are three things that they're still stuck in my craw, as you can tell. And so that's why I would really like to see payback ASAP that you tried to put in here, but if there's any way to continue negotiating, that would make me feel better. Not that anybody cares about how I feel, but just putting it out there. So, any other comments? Questions? Okay. Thank you for that update. And then again, if anybody has anything else to suggest, you can go to HR Finance and Property. And we'll move on to 8, next meeting date and time, announcements, and future agenda items. A, committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. Do we have any ideas to share? No? Okay. The next meeting is Thursday, November 7th at 3:00 p.m., and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Rosenberg, second by Hagan. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Silent. We're all unanimous. Thank you.
We'll try.
Hey, it doesn't hurt to try. They can just say no. I don't know.
It's the same thing I wrote for 12 years.
I talked to Sarah. She thought it would be better if we wait till we get it.